Numbers chapter 29, New Year's Day. In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you are to hold a sacred assembly. You shall not engage yourselves in heavy work. It shall be a day on which you sound the trumpets. You must offer as a holocaust, as a sweet aroma that appeases the Lord, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil is to be 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. There must also be a hairy he-goat for a sacrifice for sin to make atonement for you. All this must be done in addition to the monthly holocaust with its grain offering, the daily holocaust with its grain offering, and the accompanying wine offering according to the norm for them, as an offering by fire, a sweet aroma that appeases the Lord. Day of Atonement. On the 10th day of the 7th month, you are to hold a sacred assembly. You must humble yourselves by fasting, and you shall not engage yourselves in heavy work. You must offer a holocaust as an offering by fire, a sweet aroma that appeases the Lord, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil is to be 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 of each of the 7 lambs. A hairy he-goat must be offered as a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the sin offering of the Feast of Atonement, and to the daily holocaust with its accompanying grain offering and wine offerings. Feast of Tabernacles. On the 15th day of the 7th month, you are to hold a sacred assembly. You shall not engage yourselves in heavy work, and for a period of 7 days you are to celebrate a feast for the Lord. You must offer as holocaust an offering by fire, a sweet aroma that appeases the Lord, 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil is to be 3/10 of an ephah for each of the 13 bulls, 2/10 of each for the 2 rams, 1/10 for each of the 14 lambs, also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 2nd day, 12 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required, in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs, also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 3rd day, 11 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs, also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 4th day, 2 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs, also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 5th day, 9 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. The accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs, also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 6th day, 8 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect. the accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required, in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs. Also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 7th day, 7 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 one-year-old lambs without any defect, the accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required, in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs. Also 1 hairy goat, 1 hairy he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. On the 8th day you are to hold a solemn assembly. You shall not engage yourselves in heavy work. You shall offer as a holocaust, as a sweet aroma that appeases the Lord, 1 bull, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old lambs without any defect, the accompanying grain offering and wine offering as required, in proportion to the number of bulls, rams, and lambs. Also 1 he-goat for a sacrifice for sin. This is in addition to the daily holocaust with its grain offering and wine offering. These are the things you are to do for the Lord at your solemn feast, with regard to your holocaust, grain offerings, wine offerings, and the covenant sacrifices, besides your vows and free will offerings. Numbers chapter 30. Vows. Moses told people of Israel exactly what the Lord had commanded. Vows. Moses spoke to the leaders of the tribes of Israel. He said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. If a man makes a vow to the Lord or pledges himself under oath, he must not break his promise. Whatever he promises by word of mouth, he must fulfill. If a woman makes a vow to the Lord or binds herself by a solemn promise while she is still young and lives in her father's house, and if he hears about this vow or solemn promise made by her and says nothing to her about it, she is bound by her vow or solemn promise, whatever it may be. But if her father disapproves of it on the day he learns of it, then she is not bound by her vow or solemn promise. The Lord will not hold her bound to her vow, since her father has expressed his disapproval. If a woman makes a vow before being married or binds herself by a solemn promise without giving it much thought, if her husband learns of it and says nothing about it, she is bound by her vow or solemn promise even after marriage. But if on the day he learns of it he expresses his disapproval to her, he is thereby annuls the vow she had made or the rash pledge to which she had bound herself. The Lord will not hold her bound to her rash pledge. Any vow of a widow or of a divorced woman, or any pledge to which she binds herself, is binding upon her. If she has made a vow or binds herself by a solemn promise while in her husband's house, and if when the husband learns of it he says nothing to her and does not express disapproval to her, then she is bound by her vow or solemn promise. But if the husband forbids it on the day he learns of it, she is not bound by her vow or solemn promise. Since her husband has annulled it, the Lord has not held her bound to it. Any vow or solemn promise that the wife makes must be allowed or forbidden by the husband. And if by the following day the husband has said nothing to her, it means that he approves of her vow, whatever it may be, or her solemn promise, whatever it may be. He confirms the vows of his wife by saying nothing on the day he learns of them. But if he forbids them a long time after he has learned of them, then he must bear the consequences of his wife's failure to fulfill the vow or solemn promise. These are the statutes given by the Lord to Moses concerning the relationship between a man and his wife, and between a father and his daughter while still young and living in a father's house. Psalm chapter 67. A harvest song. May God be gracious and bless us. May He let His face shine upon us. May your way be known on earth and your salvation among the nations. May the peoples praise you, O God. May all the peoples praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples with justice and guide the nations with fairness. May the peoples praise you, O God. May all the peoples praise you. The land has given its harvest. God, our God, has blessed us. May God always bless us, and may He always be feared to the very ends of the earth. Mark chapter 11, verse 1 to 18. The entry into Jerusalem. When they drew near to Jerusalem, they arrived at Bethphage, at Bethany at the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent two of His disciples with these instructions. Go to the village on the other side, and as you enter it, you will find a colt tied up that no one has ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone says to you, "What are you doing?" tell him, "The Lord needs it," and He will send it back immediately. They went off and found the colt out in the street tied at the door. As they were untying it, some of the bystanders asked, "Why are you untying the colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them, and the people let them go. They brought the colt to Jesus, threw their cloaks on its back, and Jesus sat on it. Many people also spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread leafy branches from the fields. Then the people who walked ahead and those who followed behind Jesus began to shout, "Hosanna! Blessed is He who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of our father David which is coming. Hosanna in the highest." So Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And after He had looked all around, as it was already late, He went out to Bethany with the 12. Jesus curses a fig tree. The next day when they were leaving Bethany, He felt hungry. In the distance He noticed a fig tree covered with leaves, so He went to see if it could find anything on it. When He reached it, He found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. Then Jesus said to the fig tree, "May no one ever eat of your fruit." And His disciples heard these words. Jesus cleansed the temple. When they reached Jerusalem, Jesus went to the temple and began to drive away all the people who saw buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the stools of those who sold doves, and He would not let anyone carry anything through the temple area. Jesus then taught the people, "Is it not written in the scriptures, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all the nations,' but you have turned it into a den of thieves." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this, and they tried to find a way to destroy Him. They were afraid of Him because all the people were amazed at His teaching. When evening came, Jesus left the city.